Today we are talking about black tie scents, which is kind of ironic because Matt and I very rarely ever go out, much less go to black tie events. But if we were to find ourselves attending a black tie event, then these are the fragrances that we would probably reach for first. Not saying that we wouldn't wear something else in the fragrance wardrobe, but these are the ones, for me at least, that would rise to the top of the list of things to consider. I have a total of 10 fragrances here. I'm not going to go into too much detail about the notes and how they develop. Some of these, I confess, I have not worn enough to be able to make that kind of commentary, but I can at least convey how they make me feel and I guess my primary impressions of these perfumes. So with that all said, let's get into the list. All right, so the first one I'm going to recommend is for the men, and this is a fragrance by Ormond Jane. This is just a travel size. I don't have a full bottle of it, but this is Nawab of Oudh. I confess, when I first tried this perfume, I wasn't really sure what to think of it. I definitely get quite a bit of cardamom in the opening, which is not unusual for Ormond Jane. I think I get cardamom in a lot of her perfumes, or some kind of spice. So this one is quite spicy. It is quite bright and sparkly almost. There's also a hint of cinnamon as well in the top. I get citruses, and it's very pleasant. It's very clean smelling, very formal smelling, hence why it's on this list. But for me, the magic is in the dry down of this perfume, and there's this beautiful, smooth, crisp woodiness to it. Obviously there's apparently oud or some kind of oud mimicking note in here, but it's very dry and it's very clean and very crisp. There are some florals in here which do help to soften it a little bit, and I think add just like the hint of sweetness, but it's not a sweet perfume by any means. It just takes off, I guess, the edge of that blast of spiciness in the opening and the super dry woodiness in the base. It's a very elegant perfume, like a lot of Ormond Jane fragrances, but I do picture a man in a suit that's impeccable and not a wrinkle anywhere, hair perfectly coiffed and just very well groomed. This is a really fantastic perfume. So that is Nawab of Oudh. And as I said, I only have the travel size. I mean, I like this one, and I'm the one who has worn most of this travel size, but Matt's not really aware of it, and he doesn't really think about it because these travel sizes, I have so many of them and they just kind of get lost. The next one is one for the women, or men as well actually. It's quite unisex. This is Opera by Xerjoff. I confess, I really do love the bottle of this one. This is such a weird one to me. I found it very confusing when I first tried it, and I continue to find it confusing every time I wear it. There are some days where I just absolutely adore this perfume, and it is very formal smelling. It's not something that I would typically just wear anytime. However, I have worn it to the office, and I felt a little bit self-conscious in it, I'm not going to lie, because it is so different and it smells like an evening kind of perfume. It's very opulent, very spicy. There's fruits. When I first tried it, I really struggled to get these fruits that people were describing in the opening. And now that I've worn it quite a lot, I kind of understand the fruit, but the fruit is very much balanced with, I think, woody notes. And there's a plastickiness about them as well. And sometimes there's also this, particularly on a paper strip, I think this is a perfume that you definitely have to put on skin and let it warm up. But on a paper strip, it almost has this bug spray, petroleum, gasoline kind of aspect to it, which I don't love, but I don't get it when I wear it on me. On me, I get this sort of weird plastic doll fruity opening, which then develops into this fantastic blend of what must be the fruits with florals and woody notes. And when it dries down, that sort of plasticky doll's head sort of aspect that I get in the opening transforms into more of a leathery, spicy, woody dry down. When I first was getting to know this perfume, I kept thinking of cashmere woods. Because of the texture that the scent profile has, it really does remind me of opulent fabrics like velvet and cashmere. It's a very interesting perfume. I do struggle to wear it sometimes because you really do need, I think, an occasion to wear this perfume, and I rarely have such an occasion, but at the same time, I really love wearing it when I'm wearing it, and I feel very fancy when I'm wearing it. So that is Opera by Xerjoff. The next one is one for the men, but it's also for the women as well. Let's just agree that all of these are pretty much unisex and can be worn by anybody. This is Dior Homme Intense. I wear this one quite a lot, and sometimes I ask Matt to wear it because I want to smell it. Even when I'm not feeling like wearing it myself. This is such a beautiful suede iris perfume. A bit spicy as well, quite aromatic in the opening. I think there's lavender that gives it this sort of cooling aromatic edge. But it's so well blended, I think, with the iris and the musky notes. I don't know if there's necessarily a leathery note or a chord in here, at least not one that's listed that I'm aware of, but it does have this suede aspect to it, which could just be the iris, the musk and the woods. And there's like a sweetness in here as well, which I believe is from a pear note, but I would never have picked it as pear. It just adds this element of sweet without being too overwhelming. But actually it's really interesting. When I spray this on the strip, I get quite a lot of lavender coming off it, whereas I don't get that so much when I'm wearing it. I do definitely get an aromatic element that comes through, but here the lavender is very prominent. I haven't worn it in a really long time, so perhaps I should wear it again and see if I still get that lavender when I'm actually wearing it, because that is something new that I've really noticed. I always knew there was lavender in it, and I could always sort of get it, but it's never been quite that prominent before. So I'm not sure if it's just because I've been spraying it on paper or if I'm starting to recognise more of the scent profile for this perfume. So that is Dior Homme Intense, a really beautiful lavendery, suede iris perfume. Next up is one for those with a bit of a sweet tooth. This is Absolute Aphrodisiac by Initio Parfums. I remember when I first got this, it was a long time ago now. I remember you couldn't get these in Australia anywhere. I had to buy it from a US perfumery who charged me an arm and a leg to ship it internationally because none of the international stores were stocking them. Oh, wow. I still really love this. This is probably one of my early forays into really sweet perfumes, ones that I really enjoyed. I know that a lot of people get something dirty in here, or they really get the castoreum and they sort of think it smells a little bit dirty. I don't get that at all. I mean, I do get a leatheriness, definitely, but it does not smell dirty. It doesn't smell animalic or anything like that. It's really a beautiful, sweet, dark, leathery vanilla on an ambery base, which I guess is what gives it sort of that darkness. But this is so fantastic, so sweet. When I smell it, I'm still going, I can't believe I like this because of how sweet it is, but I really do. That combination of that leathery accord or the castoreum with the amber, it's just spectacular. So, so good. It has this dark feeling about it. It definitely has sort of a nightimey vibe. I don't think I could wear this during the daytime. Yeah, I think of really sort of heavy clothing, you know, wools and scarves and dressy coats. That's what comes to mind, dressy coats, when I smell this perfume. I also have a bit of an attachment to this perfume because it's one of the earlier ones that I bought when Matt and I got together, and we were going out quite a lot at that time, and I used to wear this when we went out in the evenings. So I definitely have a bit of a sentimental attachment to it, even though I don't wear it that much anymore. But we're in winter at the moment. Perhaps I should dig it out and put it on my perfume tray so that I remember to wear it on the colder days. All right, so next up is one called Woody Mood by Olfactive Studios. This is an older bottle. The bottles don't look like this anymore. I remember getting the Olfactive Studio discovery kits back in, I think, 2019, and pretty much loving everything. They were all, excuse me, they were all fairly, I remember, quite light wearing, almost citrusy, juicy kind of perfumes. And this was one that really jumped out at me because of how the black tea in here is so beautifully balanced with the woods. I'm not typically a tea perfume fan. There are a couple in my wardrobe that I really like, but this is very aromatic. I think it's got clary sage, there's some ginger, there's incense and black tea. It's the woods in here are very dry, but in the base, again, I get kind of a leathery undertone. It's very subtle though. I mean, this really to me is primarily about the woods and maybe some of the more aromatic aspects, and the tea and the incense. It's kind of dark, but it's not heavy. It's very light in the wear, in the feel of the wear, and it just has this really expensive, elegant feel to it. I hate using that word expensive to describe perfumes, but this really does smell very elevated and formal, you know. But at the same time, it could be worn casually as well. I would definitely wear this in the daytime. I'd wear it to work. There's just enough sweetness in here for it to be quite approachable on a daytime basis as well as evening. Yeah, it's a great perfume. I don't know why this one doesn't get talked about more. I think it did get talked about quite a bit a few years ago on Instagram in particular, but I need to bring it back because it's fantastic. The next one I've talked about a little bit over the years, but it's been a while since I've mentioned it. And in fact, I had kind of forgotten about it in my wardrobe, and the other day I was digging around and went, oh, I haven't worn that in such a long time. But I remember when I first got this bottle and I just thought it was so good. This is Nero Assoluto by Roberto Cavalli. This is one that I thought was very interesting. Oh, I've worn quite a bit of it actually. This is one that was quite interesting to me because at the time of buying it, I really was not enjoying fragrances that had fruity openings, and particularly pear, because I just found pear so overwhelmingly sweet. This has a sweet pear in the opening of the perfume. It very quickly develops into a very opulent smelling orchid note. I don't feel like this perfume is super complex, but it has this sort of orchid accord that feels very opulent and has kind of a velvety touch to it. And in the base you have these sort of dark woods with a vanilla. The woods aren't too woody though, they just sort of add depth and body to the perfume, in addition to that orchid accord. And it just remains kind of sweet, but the sweetness does settle down once it settles on the skin a little bit. It's just so unlike anything. I don't feel like I've smelled anything like this before or since. So it does have a bit of a unique spot in my wardrobe in terms of the scent profile. And again, because of those dark woods, I do feel like this suits an evening occasion really, really well. That sweet fruity opening though perhaps brings that evening formality down a little bit, but once it settles on the skin and that blends in more with the orchid accord, I feel like this develops into a much more evening style perfume. So I guess my recommendation is that if you're going to wear something like this for an evening out and you want to smell formal, then just, you know, spray it enough ahead of time to allow that initial opening to settle down a little bit. And the other thing that I really love about this perfume is that it won't break the bank either. I believe you can pick this up for about $60 Australian at the moment, so it's quite reasonably priced for how it smells. Next up is one of Matt's favourites, and I have spoken about this quite a lot in recent times. This is Vanille by Histoire de Parfum. Once again, very big on the cardamom. In fact, in this list of all the perfumes that have cardamom, it's the cardamom in this one that is like the most bombastic of all of my cardamom perfumes. This is very spicy, it's very aromatic, it's ambery. There's a sweetness in here because there's lots of vanilla and benzoin. Again, lots of spice. There's cinnamon, and it's very green as well, but it's dark and green. So in my mind, when I think of the colors, I'm thinking of like almost black browns, you know, from the woods. But then you've got these really spicy green elements. I think what makes the cardamom really pop in this perfume is because cardamom in and of itself is quite a green spice, and there's galbanum in here as well. And I think that those two come together and it just makes the cardamom really jump out. And then of course, as I said, you've got lavender, which brings this sort of cooling aromatic tone to the perfume. There's something in here, maybe it's saffron, but there's like something in here that's kind of zingy and really diffusive. Yeah, it's a great one. It's not one, I really love the smell of this. And when I first discovered this perfume, I was wearing it. We just had the travel size to start with, but over time, this really became Matt's perfume. He really loves it and it really does smell good on him. And actually, whenever I smell this now, I think of Matt, you know, it's his perfume. So that is Vanille by Histoire de Parfum. The next one is likely to be well known to most of you. This is Coco Noir by Chanel. Again, quite an ambery perfume. Lots of patchouli in this one as well. So if you don't like patchouli, this may not work for you. I get quite a bit of rose and geranium, which is sort of more of a green aromatic take on rose to me. Whenever I smell geranium oil, it always smells kind of rosy, but in a green aromatic way. And then there's some fruity elements in here too, particularly peach is what I get. And it's that sort of old-fashioned, vintagey kind of peach that you get in vintage perfumes that, I don't know, make it smell vintage, I suppose. And one thing that I hadn't always been aware of, and I only became aware of it recently because I've been going through my perfume wardrobe and trying to record wherever I can all of the perfumers that are associated with all the perfumes that I have. And Christopher Sheldrake actually had a hand in making this perfume, which I don't think I knew that before. In fact, weirdly, I'm not even sure that I knew he worked at Chanel, that he was the in-house perfumer for Chanel since the early, well, sort of mid-2000s, 2010s. What do you say after 2010? Just after 2010, I think he moved to Chanel. So it's very dark, it's very woody, spicy, ambery with this rose aromatic twist to it. And for a while I used to really struggle with this perfume. I found it quite headache inducing, but lately when I've worn it, I haven't had headaches at all. So I don't know, maybe I've been wearing so much other perfume that my body has now become accustomed to wearing, you know, perfumes that are a little bit bolder, because this one does jump off my skin a little bit more than, say, the original Coco. Yeah, I mean, it still has the original Coco DNA for sure. Better get the lid around the right way. But as I said, I feel like this is more elegant nighttime, black tie type scenario because of that patchouli and the rose elements that are in here. So anyway, that is Coco Noir by Chanel. Okay, last one for the men. for the men's list. This is, oh, I should show you, but I just have a decant of this. This is Vanille Havane by Les Indomptables, and I really like this perfume, but I would struggle to wear this myself. The reason I put this one in the list is because this is such a dark, boozy, cocoa-y, spicy vanilla perfume. When I first spray it on the strip, I get a blast of cocoa, which I don't hate. I actually really like it in this perfume. And there's lots of tobacco, which I think it's the tobacco that gives it kind of a smoky edge, or maybe there's incense in here as well, because it has this kind of, yeah, smoky, dark, smoky edge to it. It's very dry and spicy whilst still being really kind of fluffy and cocooning as a vanilla scent. It's so good, but it is so dark, and that's why I put it on this list, because I couldn't imagine wearing this perfume or having anyone around me wear this perfume unless it was wintertime and we were out and it was nighttime. It has to be nighttime. But it would go really, really well, I think, as a black tie kind of perfume, because, you know, it has this presence about it, which is quite commanding, and, you know, on the right person, particularly a man, for me, that I imagine a man, even though I don't consider this to be particularly masculine leaning, or maybe it is because of the tobacco, who knows, but I really do think that it would be somebody that a very tall man with lots of presence would wear. Mysterious, you know? Anyway, it's great. I'm really enjoying the decant, and I haven't even given it to Matt yet to wear, but I really should let him have a wear of it and see how that affects me. But unfortunately, it's not easy for us to get these perfumes in Australia. There is an online store that sells them, but I think they've just changed hands, so they're kind of in a bit of a state of flux at the moment. And this one is pretty much always sold out, so maybe one day I'll get my hands on a bottle. And so the last one that I want to talk about is Lady Whitesnake, which I've talked about many, many times on this channel already. So you're probably sick to death of hearing about it. So this is a very dark, woody, leathery, smoky white floral. So the opulence in this perfume comes from, I guess, the leathery aspects, the woody aspects, but then you've got these beautiful, sweet white florals over the top. And then you also, which doesn't come off on the strip, I have to say, but when I put it on my skin, in the opening, I get quite a lot of citrus. I think it's a mandarin note, which gives it quite, just like a hint of sparkle, but it's not light. It's quite a dark perfume from start to finish, but you get this sort of uplift in the opening, which I think is from the mandarin and maybe the honeysuckle that's in here. There is orange blossom and I think tuberose. I do get quite a bit of the orange blossom on the strip, actually, which I don't get maybe quite as much when I'm wearing it on my person. I think when I'm wearing it, I either don't really discern individual white florals at all, or I get more of the tuberose coming through. But again, this is so opulent. It does really smell quite formal. However, I wear this during the day as well, and I wear it kind of anytime, anywhere. It's just that I love it so much that I will wear it whenever. Whereas for some of these other perfumes, I'm more likely to preserve them for more formal special occasions, because I don't feel like I can get away with them on any old occasion. But this one, I don't know why, but it has, maybe it is the white florals in here, but it just, even though it has this very formal, dark undertone to it, which makes it very evening appropriate, I just find that there's something in here that's sunny enough for you to be able to wear it during the day. And possibly for more occasions than some of these other perfumes. So that is Lady Whitesnake, and that is the last perfume on this list. Not that I really need any black tie recommendations because I don't go out that much, but I'd be really curious to know what perfumes you would reach for black tie type of occasions. And with that, I'm going to leave it there. Please do give this a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and thank you for sticking around. Subscribe if you aren't already, if you want to, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.